I am. Taking a longer break between these discourses is very helpful. It allows me to have new thoughts come into my head, things that I want to talk about. It allows me to recover from the last discourse. I feel fresher. Everything is a work in progress. So I just am kind of flexible with it. It's not like it's important to anybody. It's more that it has that, and it fulfills that need that I have to talk. And it's not necessarily that I want to talk to anybody. It's just a talking behavior, releasing ideas, visions, mind warping, etc. One of the things that happened since my last discourse is I learned what all the Balinese are calling me, what their name for me is. They don't call me Thoth. I am Thoth, but they call me another name, and that is special because it's what they see me as and what they hold me as. And so I hear this name all the time whenever I walk around, wherever I walk around, from people riding scooters, from kiosks. And they're always very exultant when they say it, and they go, Pulu, Pulu, Pulu. It feels like I'm a comic book hero. And even what it is a hermit who lived in the jungle, who would come out every now and then into the Balinese world and do whatever he did. So I really welcome their naming me. It's very intimate and it's very warm and welcoming, and I'm also wanting really to go full blast into the phone thing because I'm so sick and tired of seeing everybody with their phones up to their face, walking this willy-nilly without any awareness of where they're going, just looking at their phones. After my headstone dance and sun adherence, a European fellow of some sort chased me down and he said, "Could I film you doing that?" And I said, "Well, I'm finished." I'm finished. And so it was kind of funny, and there was almost this moment of, should I do this for him or not? And I withdrew from that. You see, the temptation is strong. People offer this kind of attention, and then there is a desire to fulfill their, what they seem to be showing as love or attention or interest. But I pulled away from that and I said, I'm done. And he walked on and I walked on. It doesn't matter at all. It's just a funny thing, because what he pulled out was, of course, was his phone. Everybody pulls out their phone. We were walking in the sweetie and I were walking in the rice paddies yesterday, very far into the rice paddies, isolated, nobody around pretty much. Some ducks, a cow, ox, a chicken, a bunch of chickens, and a bunch of other people, very rural people. And there was one person who was sitting in that position that is so Balinese, and is actually Asian, and it is on the haunches, and was occupied fully with their phone, out in the middle of rural rice paddies. Every time I see a phone in somebody's hand, every time I see the phone come out onto the table with people when they're eating, every time I see phones in people's hand as they're walking up the street. We took a walking passage from downtown to almost to our home. It was a little bit too much. This fellow came by and he was wagging his phone over his head, and he was singing to whatever it was that was on the phone, and singing badly and out of tune, and really making a big noise in doing so. It was remarkably badly done. It's remarkably so bad. It was such a bad everything. And yet he was doing it so insistently. It is this that concerns me about phones, that the phone is doing the work, and this person is doing something which he thinks is very expressive, which it is not. It is also the case where I was on a scooter going through a narrow passage, and this young girl had her phone up to her face and was completely unaware of where she was at all, and basically just walked into the scooter. It was the scooter driver's remarkable reactions to her unpredictable action, his remarkable reaction to her unpredictable action that caused them from not colliding. That she was, the parent was behind her and screamed her name to alert her that she had no idea where she was. That, to me, is a symptom. If a person is engaged in the phone to such an extent that they are incapable of recognizing their danger in the world, then there is something wrong with that device. Immensely wrong. I don't care how important it is to you. I don't care how much a part of society it has become. I don't care that you can get your money off of it. I don't care that you can find your way around through GPS. I don't care that you can go to Wikipedia and find the definition for any word or find the description of any being, thing, device, animal. There is something wrong when a person is so involved in it, becomes separated from reality and was within an inch of being injured badly. So what do I think about it and how do I feel about it? You know, but I'm going to go into a very detailed description of what I've seen happen to phones. Because as some of the people who have known me in the past, have known about me, I have had a phone. I had a flip phone. I think I may have had a smartphone. I'm not quite sure. I think I ended with flip phones. I think my phone use ended at the same time as I stopped being on Facebook. I was immensely irritated by Facebook, and I stopped participating. So I stopped also using phones. I became unreachable. And I think that all of those things are important. The timing, everything. You as beings and the young beings are not going through the same I guess I don't call it evolution because I don't think of phones as an evolving growth. I don't think of it as an evolving thing. I think of it as a de-evolving. I think that the use of phones is askew. It could have been in a different way. It could have been a different method and a different path, but it wasn't. It happened in a very, very problematic way. The first time I realized that phones could be a problem and were a problem was we were playing out in Lisbon, Portugal, and there was a moment in the performance when I had this feeling that there was something missing, that something was happening that was weird and I was missing. And what is this thing that I'm missing? Something's happened that I don't understand. Up until that point, we had supplemented our income with CD sales. People would, do you have any music that I could buy? And we would sell them a CD. That had stopped, but I didn't notice that so clearly yet. But what really had stopped is this relationship that we were having with our audience. And I couldn't figure it out at first. It was something subtler than I could put my finger on yet. And yet, at that moment, I suddenly realized what it was. What was happening was that I was slowly losing contact with people's eyes. And that was suddenly really clear for me. I was like, wait a minute, I am no longer singing to people's eyes. I'm missing that. There's something wrong here. What's going on? And the interesting thing about that awareness was that the sweetie also expressed that without my talking about it to her. We, at almost like the same time, we started going about this awareness that we were having, that suddenly we feel like we are not as connected with the audience as we were in the past. So we really did a dialectic on it, and we realized that what was happening was that people were sticking their phones up in their faces to record us. They were no longer watching us with their eyes and then responding to us by asking for a CD. They were recording us through their phone and then going away. This difference between those actions is immense. Immense. I cannot even tell you how large a difference that is. In one case, they're speaking to us, they're supporting us, they're inquiring about us, they're wanting our art, in a sense, let us say. They're wanting our art through our CDs. Maybe even the CD sales could diminish, but they're not just incommunicado with us. They're in relation to us. Once the phone started showing up, and we didn't know for sure, we were just like, is this really what's happening? Once the phone started showing up, then there was no more communication with us. They stopped talking to us. They stopped watching us. They stopped interacting with us. They stopped carrying away our music somewhere else, to some other place, to share it with other people. Perhaps I will correct that slightly. They were taking photographs or videos of us, and they would share that with other people. The difference, however, is that because it has no context, it has no beginning and end, it has no mythos. It's just something they have encountered in the hallways on the Gold Walk. That is part of their going to the castle or going down to the wharf. It's very different. So when they share it with their friends, it's just eaten up by all the other large things that happen. Oh, the castle's cool. What are these strange people? Oh, what is that fish there? Oh, that's a really big building. It's different. When they bought the CD, they took the CD home and they got to play the work. They got to hear the story of the songs and the pieces that we created. They heard us manifest a tale. That loss was large for us financially, large for us socially, and large for us as builders of a fan base. Because once they left, we would never hear them. They don't know who we are. They don't have any context. They just took these videos and disappeared. We have no eye contact with them. They actually really didn't even feel us. It's not to say that CDs feel more. What happens is that eye to eye, they feel us. And then they buy a CD because they feel us. And that feeling of our eye contact is then invested in the CD. It's a loop of support. Those beings who have the CD and who have seen us eye to eye are in connection with us. Whereas those people who took the video of us on the phone, and it was an excerpt because they didn't do it from the beginning to the end. They did it right in the middle, and then probably left. Or they did it to the end and then they left. They didn't come up to us and say, "Who are you? And what are you doing?" They didn't do any of that to place the video in context. They just placed it in a, this is one of those things we saw while we were tourists or while we were traveling around Europe. Once that awareness of the phone presence between people's eyes and us and our performance happened, we started to be very conscious of this. And so once Lisbon ended and we left Lisbon and we headed elsewhere, and I believe that what we would have done would be go to New York. Once we left Lisbon and went to the Angel Tunnel, we discovered that that was similar. And that was shocking and horrifying to us. To see that this thing that we only saw partially, that was kind of like a hint of something that we thought was happening, was actually happening more than we ever could have imagined. In New York, all of the people now, we were noticing that all of our audiences were with their phones in front of their faces filming us. We weren't seeing their eyes either. There were the eyes were disappearing. It's not like fully disappeared yet. I'm not going to say that. That's a little bit too exaggerating. What it is that it started to disappear. People's eyes started to disappear, and what I started to see was what I'm looking at right now: a camera, a lens, a metallic thing in people's hands that had a lens on it that was pointed at me, and they were hidden behind this lens. They no longer needed to be afraid or scared. It's almost like they objectified us. We were no longer a potent energy. They could abstract us with the phone and take us away, and that's that. There's no inquiry about CDs, there's no inquiry about the music, there's no inquiry about the work and the performance itself. The devotion that I was doing and the intensity of what I was doing. Still, I was somewhat hopeful that this was not a large scale, not new behavior thing that I was watching. I still held out that maybe this was not really happening, although here we were in the biggest city in the world, with the biggest audiences that we have, with the most epic performance space that I ever had, and those who were an audience once before, who I could dance up to their eyes and meet them eye to eye and touch their heart. I no longer could touch their heart anymore. I no longer could reach them. They were separated from me by a phone. Not all of them, as I said, but many. I would almost want to say the majority of people now. And that just increased. From there, we went to San Diego. In San Diego, the same thing was happening. The same thing, and it was worse. It was worse by degree. It was like in Lisbon, it was a certain way. In New York, it was a certain way. And in San Diego, it was really becoming fully evident. There was no doubt in our minds that the phone had replaced people's eyes as a way of watching us. And as I have said and continue to say, by doing so, people no longer had interest in our music. They became separated from the incident and the event of us, and they took away what they filmed, and that was all they needed. They didn't inquire about us, they didn't talk to us, they didn't ask about our work and our art. So is that the end of that? In actuality, it's just the beginning. It got worse than that. What happened is that we had a certain period of time as we watched it going further and further and further. And there was as we were playing out in the Angel Tunnel and this disease we were recognizing happening, this phone thing was happening. And I'm very distracted suddenly. As the phone thing started to be very evident, I had a dream in the fall, it may be 2020, 2019. The event that occurs right after this dream will be explanatory. So I dreamed that evil behavior, the behavior to gain power, the behavior to subject humanity to a person's will and to cause great damage for the sake of their material gain, for their gain of power, for their gain of control of people, was not halted in any way, but was extremely present, was being, at that moment, there was a being who was extremely focused on that kind of power, on that kind of control, and that kind of undermining the, let us call it, democracy of the world, the freedom of people. Because people are all about controlling each other. You are probably about that. You probably try to control others. You, in your conversations, try to control people's attention. You, when you do your work or whatever you're doing, try to control people so that they'll be your fans, or your subjects, or your voters, or your students. It's something that I have eschewed, as I said. But I had this dream about a person who was very involved in gaining that sort of power. About 2 or 3 months later, the sweetie got a disease that laid her low in a way that I have never seen. She was coughing, she was sick for a month. She was coughing. I had to go into the other room. I couldn't be in the bed with her. I couldn't be in anywhere near her at night. She coughed all night. And her recovery of that was lengthy. Then within, I would say, a couple of weeks of that, there was a news flash that happened all over the news that this new disease had come into being, called the coronavirus, or let us keep it as coronavirus. I kind of find that to be quite apropos. The coronavirus then took over the world, and there was this notion of staying at home. And when that staying at home actually started happening, then we wanted to be, we needed to be stuck at home. There was nothing anybody could do. It was a very powerful effect on society. So what was the effect of this staying at home and not being able to go out and being limited that way? One of the first things that happened was that everybody started to be online. They started to project their art or their stuff through Zoom or through something, and it was all online. That change, and that as people would call an evolution, that change in humanity was very, very large. Zoom became extremely powerful as a corporation. People no longer experienced music and the musical experience as a live experience. They experienced it online or in Zoom, in some sort of broadcasted way. That was very different from us. The progress or the progression of things from that moment when we were in Lisbon and we saw people behind phones to this point in which everybody was afraid of this disease and were home, staying at home, receiving their music and their art through their computer, through Zoom, through all the different applications that projected it to them, changed the way people perceived music and art. It was no longer live. And those beings who did music from a non-live place became very, very famous. And those people who did it from a live place, as we did, were cast aside. We were no longer perceived. What we did was no longer of interest, because to look into your eyes and to sing to you into your eyes is extremely different from looking at a computer and receiving the music that I give you. For me to play my violin, sing into the lens, and for you to receive me from coming into that lens or the screen and receiving me that way, you are not receiving me at all. You're receiving something else, not me. I participate in this way that you have changed, that you have evolved, or de-evolved as I call it, but you consider it evolution, it's not working. There's a problem. The reality is gone. There is not reality. There is falseness. There is lies. You are not receiving the realness of the art. You are receiving something else. I am so unfinished about this subject because I haven't even gotten to the phones yet. So what I will do at this moment is pause and say, I will continue this next time.